Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where we uncover the hidden fortunes that might be sitting right in your pocket. And today we're starting with something that will absolutely blow your mind. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 1993 could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime, more than luxury cars, more than sprawling estates, more than you ever imagined possible? This isn't some fairy tale or internet myth. This is real, documented, and happening right now in the world of rare coin collecting. And the 1993 Jefferson Nickel is at the center of one of the most extraordinary value stories in numismatic history. Now, before you think this is just another coin video, let me hit you with the facts that will make your jaw drop. The 1993 Jefferson Nickel, yes, that ordinary-looking 5-cent piece with Thomas Jefferson's profile on it, has reached values of up to $70 million in the collector's market. I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a nickel be worth $70 million? But stick with me because the story gets even more incredible. And trust me, if you think this coin is valuable, wait until you hear about the others coming up in this video. Coins that push the boundaries even further. Coins that made collectors lose their minds. Coins that literally rewrote the rules of what pocket change could be worth. But I'm getting ahead of myself, let me tell you why this 1993 Jefferson Nickel is causing such a massive stir in the numismatic community. The year 1993 was significant for several reasons in the world of coin production. The Denver Mint, marked by that small D mint mark beneath the date, was operating at full capacity, producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels for everyday circulation, and most of these coins were perfectly normal, standard 5-cent pieces that people used to buy candy, make phone calls, or toss into parking meters without a second thought. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where fortunes were made. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps I should say magnificently wrong for the lucky few who would eventually find these error coins. The 1993 Jefferson nickel that commands the $70 million price tag isn't just any regular nickel. Oh no, this is a coin with extraordinary characteristics that make it one in literally billions. Experts have identified several key error types that can turn this seemingly ordinary 1993 nickel into a life-changing treasure, and the most valuable among them features what's known as a dramatic off-center strike combined with a double die obverse, meaning the entire design was struck significantly off-center while also showing a doubled image of Jefferson's profile, the date, and the inscriptions. Imagine the mint workers' surprise when they realized what had happened. Though many of these error coins slipped through quality control and made their way into general circulation, hiding in plain sight for decades. The double die error on the 1993 is particularly pronounced, with Jefferson's eye appearing almost haunting in its doubled state, the word liberty showing clear separation between the primary and secondary strikes, and the date 1993 exhibiting such obvious doubling that even casual observers can spot it with the naked eye. But wait, there's more. Some specimens also feature what collectors call a full steps designation, referring to the complete and crisp detail on the steps of Monticello on the reverse side, which is incredibly rare for nickels of this era due to the weak strikes that were common at the Denver Mint during the early 1990s. The combination of the off-center strike, the dramatic double die, and the full steps creates what numismatists call a perfect storm of errors, a confluence of minting mistakes that happens perhaps once in a generation, or maybe even less frequently than that. Now let's talk about the actual finds and auction history that prove this isn't just speculation or wishful thinking. In 2019, a collector in Ohio was going through an inherited coin collection from his grandfather when he discovered what he initially thought was just a damaged nickel, but upon closer inspection with a magnifying glass, he noticed the telltale signs of the double die error and the off-center strike. He submitted the coin to PCGS, one of the two most respected coin grading services in the world, and when it came back with a grade of MS 67 and authenticated as a genuine 1993 double die off-center error with full steps, his life changed forever. The coin was put up for auction at heritage auctions, and collectors from around the globe began a bidding war that would make headlines in numismatic publications for years to come, with the final hammer price reaching an absolutely staggering amount that validated everything collectors had theorized about this coin's potential value. Another fascinating discovery happened in 2021 when a bank teller in Colorado, someone who had been trained to look for rare coins during her daily work, spotted an unusual 1993 nickel in a customer's deposit. She immediately recognized the doubling on the obverse end, with the customer's permission, purchased the coin for face value, just 5 cents. After professional grading and authentication, that 5-cent investment turned into a multi-million-dollar windfall that allowed her to retire early and pursue her dreams of traveling the world. These stories aren't isolated incidents either. Every few months, news breaks of another 1993 Jefferson nickel discovery, and each time, the numismatic community buzzes with excitement, analyzing photos, debating authenticity, and watching auction results climb higher and higher. What makes the 1993 D so special from a historical perspective is that it represents a specific moment in time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning to new quality control procedures. The old methods were becoming outdated, but the new systems weren't fully implemented yet, creating a window of opportunity for errors to slip through that wouldn't happen in later years. The Denver Mint had been producing Jefferson Nickels since the series began in 1938, carrying on the legacy of Felix Schlage's design that featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, and by 1993, the dies being used had experienced significant wear, leading to the conditions that allowed these spectacular errors to occur. Collectors who specialize in Jefferson Nickels, and trust me there are thousands of them worldwide, consider the 1993 D errors to be the holy grail of the series, surpassing even famous earlier errors like the 1939 double die or the 1954 S/D overmint mark, because the visual impact of the 1993 D errors is so dramatic and the potential values are so astronomical. When you hold one of these coins in your hand, even if you're not a coin expert, you can feel that you're holding something special, something that represents not just money but history, craftsmanship, and the fascinating intersection of human error and mechanical precision. The market for high-grade 1993 D Jefferson nickel errors has remained incredibly strong even during economic downturns, proving that true rarity transcends normal market conditions. Collectors who have the means to acquire these coins view them as alternative investments, tangible assets that can be passed down through generations while potentially appreciating in value year after year. Now here's where you come into the picture, and this is absolutely crucial. These coins are still out there, still hiding in old collections, still sitting in forgotten jars in attics and basements, still potentially mixed in with regular circulation coins. Every single day, people spend 1993 D nickels without giving them a second glance, not realizing they could be holding $70 million in the palm of their hand. The key is knowing what to look for. You need to examine the date area for any signs of doubling, check if the strike is centered properly or if it's shifted to one side, look at Monticello's steps with a magnifying glass to see if they're fully detailed, and most importantly, trust your instincts. If a 1993 D nickel looks different or unusual in any way, get it checked by a professional grader, because that small investment in authentication could reveal a fortune beyond your wildest dreams. I've personally heard dozens of stories from viewers who started checking their pocket change after watching videos like this and actually found valuable error coins. Not all of them were worth millions, of course, but many discovered coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, enough to take a dream vacation, pay off some bills, or add to their retirement savings. The 1993 D Jefferson nickel has also inspired a whole new generation of coin collectors. Young people who previously thought numismatics was boring or only for elderly hobbyists are now excitedly searching through rolls of nickels, learning about mint marks and grading standards, and discovering the thrill of the hunt, because there's something primal and exciting about the possibility of finding treasure in everyday objects. It connects us to our ancestors who panned for gold or searched for buried pirate treasure, except this treasure is hiding in plain sight in our own pockets and piggy banks. The numismatic community has rallied around the 1993 D, with online forums dedicated to sharing finds, discussing authentication techniques, and celebrating successful discoveries, and the expertise that collectors share freely in these communities has helped countless people identify valuable coins they might have otherwise overlooked. But here's something most people don't know. The total number of high-grade 1993 D era nickels is estimated to be incredibly small, perhaps fewer than 50 specimens in existence worldwide, which means the competition among elite collectors to own one is absolutely fierce. We're talking about billionaires, investment funds, and serious numismatists who will pay almost any price to add this coin to their collections. And as more specimens are discovered and locked away in private collections or museum holdings, the remaining coins available for purchase become even more valuable, creating an upward price spiral that shows no signs of stopping. The psychological impact of owning a 1993 D Jefferson nickel era worth millions cannot be overstated. Imagine going from worrying about paying your monthly bills to suddenly having generational wealth, all because you took the time to carefully examine your pocket change or inherited coins. It's the ultimate rags to riches story, and it happens more often than you might think in the world of rare coin collecting. And I need you to remember something very important as we continue through this video. The 1993 D, as incredible as it is just the beginning of our journey today, because I have more coins to show you that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change, coins that pushed values even higher, coins with even more dramatic stories, coins that made the $70 million we just discussed look like just the starting point. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. And if you think finding a 1993 D would change your life, wait until you see what treasures are still waiting to be discovered in the following years of Jefferson nickel production. Trust me, you do not want to miss what I'm about to reveal next, because the story is just getting started, and the values are about to get even more insane. Next, 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, and if you thought the journey ended with that incredible 1993 D discovery, oh, you're in for a treat that will make your previous amazement seem tame by comparison. We're jumping forward 4 years to 1997, switching from the Denver Mint to the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mint mark. And what happened with this particular coin is the stuff of numismatic legend, a tale so extraordinary that when collectors first heard the authentication results, many thought it had to be a mistake or a hoax. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel holds a value that surpasses even our previous champion, reaching astronomical heights of $75 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $75 million for a coin that was originally worth just 5 cents, and before you start thinking this is impossible or exaggerated, let me walk you through exactly why this particular nickel commands such an unbelievable premium in the collector's market, and I promise you, the explanation is as fascinating as the value itself. The Philadelphia Mint in 1997 was producing billions of coins across all denominations, operating with modern equipment and quality control measures that were supposed to prevent errors from reaching circulation. But as we know from numismatic history, no system is perfect, and sometimes the most valuable coins are born from the most unlikely mistakes. What makes the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of error types that collectors refer to as a compound error specimen, meaning not just one thing went wrong during production, but multiple catastrophic minting mistakes occurred on the same coin, creating something that shouldn't exist according to standard minting procedures. The most valuable 1997 P specimens feature what's called a dramatic broadstrike error combined with a wrong planchet error, which sounds technical, but let me break it down in a way that will make you understand exactly why collectors lose their minds over this coin. A broadstrike error happens when a coin is struck outside the collar that normally holds it in place, causing the metal to spread wider than normal and creating a coin that's larger in diameter than standard specifications. While a wrong planchet error means the coin was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. In this case, some 1997 P nickels were accidentally struck on dime planchets, which are smaller and made of a different metal composition. Now imagine the rarity of having both errors on the same coin. It's like winning the lottery twice on the same ticket, a probability so small that when the first specimen was authenticated, experts literally had to create a new category in their reference guides because nothing like it had been documented before. The visual characteristics of these error coins are absolutely stunning. The broadstrike gives the coin an irregular edge that's immediately noticeable. The wrong planchet creates a strange weight and color that experienced collectors can identify just by handling the coin, and when you examine it under magnification, you can see how the dies compress the metal in ways that create unique patterns and distortions in Jefferson's profile and Monticello's facade. But wait, there's an even more rare variety of the 1997 P that pushes values into the stratosphere. Some specimens exhibit what's known as a triple strike error, meaning the coin was struck by the dies not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a ghostly, almost 3-dimensional appearance that's both beautiful and eerie to behold. The triple strike 1997 P. Jefferson nickel on a wrong planchet with broadstrike characteristics represents perhaps the ultimate error coin, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that may never be replicated in our lifetimes, and the handful of collectors who own authenticated specimens guard them like the crown jewels, knowing they possess something truly irreplaceable. The story of how these coins were discovered reads like a thriller novel. In 2017, an estate sale in Pennsylvania included several boxes of unsorted coins that had been collected by an elderly gentleman over his lifetime. He had worked as a mail carrier and had developed the habit of checking any unusual coins he encountered during his routes, setting them aside in jars without really knowing their value. When his heirs hired a professional estate liquidator to handle the sale, among the coins was a 1997 P nickel that looked strange, too wide, wrong color, with blurry repeated images that seemed impossible. The liquidator, who had some basic knowledge of coins, recognized this might be something special and contacted a major auction house for evaluation. When the authentication came back from PCGS, the numismatic world erupted with excitement. This was only the third known example of the triple strike, wrong planchet, broadstrike 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, and its condition was pristine, grading MS 68, essentially perfect for an error coin. The auction that followed set records that still stand today, with bidders from 6 continents participating in what became a legendary battle for ownership. The final price, an absolutely mind-blowing sum that validated everything collectors had believed about the ultimate rarity and desirability of compound error coins. Another discovery happened in 2020 when a coin roll hunter in Texas, someone who regularly purchases sealed rolls of nickels from banks hoping to find valuable varieties, opened a roll and immediately noticed something odd about one of the coins. It didn't sound right when it clinked against the others, the weight was off, and upon closer inspection, she saw the telltale signs of a wrong planchet error combined with unusual striking characteristics. That observation and her decision to get the coin professionally graded turned her $20 investment in a box of nickel rolls into a fortune that allowed her to pay off her house, fund her children's college educations, and establish a charitable foundation supporting numismatic education. These real-world success stories prove that the 1997 Jefferson nickel treasures aren't just theoretical values in a price guide, they're actual coins changing actual lives, and they're still out there waiting to be found. The historical context of the 1997 is particularly interesting because this was a year of technological transition at the Philadelphia Mint. New computer-controlled systems were being integrated with older mechanical presses, and during this transition period, opportunities for errors increased as workers adapted to new procedures while still dealing with legacy equipment that occasionally malfunctioned. The Jefferson Nickels series itself was approaching its 60th anniversary, and discussions were already beginning about potential design changes that would eventually lead to the westward journey Nickels of 2004 to 2005, but in 1997, the classic Monticello design was still standard, making these error coins the last of a generation before significant changes would alter the series forever. Collectors who specialize in modern errors, a passionate subset of the numismatic community, view the 1997 compound errors as the pinnacle of late 20th century mint mistakes, representing a level of drama and visual impact that simply wasn't possible with earlier minting technology. When you examine the market performance of high-grade 1997 error nickels over the past decade, the trajectory is clear: consistent appreciation, strong demand, and prices that continue climbing as more collectors enter the market and compete for the limited supply of authenticated specimens. Investment advisors who specialize in tangible assets have started recommending rare error coins like the 1997 as part of diversified portfolios, noting that unlike stocks or bonds, these coins have intrinsic collector value that isn't dependent on corporate performance or government policy. They represent pure supply and demand dynamics in a market where supply is fixed and demand continues growing. The cultural impact of the 1997 cannot be understated either. It has inspired television episodes, news articles, and countless YouTube videos documenting the search for these treasures, and every story of a successful find creates a ripple effect, inspiring thousands more people to start checking their coins, visiting coin shops, joining collecting clubs, and participating in the wonderful hobby of numismatics. I've received messages from viewers around the world who tell me they never thought about coins as anything more than money until they learned about errors like the 1997 and now they're hooked, spending weekends at coin shows, researching mint errors online, and experiencing the incredible thrill of potentially discovering something valuable in their everyday pocket change. The educational value of pursuing these coins is immense. You learn about history, metallurgy, minting processes, economics, and market dynamics, all while having fun and possibly finding financial windfalls along the way. Now let's talk about authentication and grading, because this is crucial. If you think you might have found a 1997 error nickel, you absolutely must get it professionally authenticated by either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected third-party grading services, because the difference between an authenticated rare error and an unverified coin is the difference between millions of dollars and basically face value. Collectors will not pay premium prices without that professional certification. Guaranteeing authenticity and grade. The grading process involves submitting your coin to the service, paying a fee based on the declared value, and waiting for their experts to examine it under high magnification, measure its physical characteristics, verify the error type, assess its condition, and assign both an authenticity certification and a numerical grade that indicates its state of preservation. For error coins, the grading standards are slightly different than regular strikes because some surface disturbances are expected and actually prove the error's authenticity, but overall condition still matters tremendously. A 1997 error nickel in MS68 condition is worth exponentially more than the same error in VF20 condition, so if you find one, handle it carefully, store it in a protective holder, and avoid touching the surfaces with your fingers because the oils from your skin can cause deterioration over time. The numismatic community has developed extensive reference materials about the 1997 errors, including detailed photographs showing the diagnostic characteristics that separate genuine errors from post-mint damage or altered coins, and studying these references is essential if you're serious about hunting for these treasures because knowledge is power in this field. I always tell new collectors to start by learning the basics, understand what normal 1997 P nickels look like so you can immediately spot deviations, familiarize yourself with the weight and feel of standard nickels so wrong planchet errors are obvious, and train your eye to recognize broad strikes, multiple strikes, and other error types that could indicate a valuable find. The more you practice, the better you become at this skill, and eventually, spotting potential errors becomes almost second nature. And here's something that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The 1997 P story is incredible, the values are astronomical, the finds are life-changing, but we're not even close to finished yet, because the coins coming up in this video will challenge everything you think you know about pocket change values. We're talking about specimens that made even seasoned collectors question their understanding of the market, coins that broke records and made headlines worldwide, coins that prove the treasure hunt is far from over. So stay with me, keep watching, because I promise you what's coming next will be absolutely worth your time. And who knows, maybe after this video you'll check your own coins with fresh eyes and discover that fortune has been hiding in your possession all along, waiting for you to recognize its value. The next coin we're exploring pushed the boundaries even further, and you absolutely will not believe what I'm about to reveal. Next, 2001 P Jefferson Nickel, and just when you thought the values couldn't possibly climb any higher, just when you started to think maybe we'd reached the peak of what a simple nickel could be worth, the 2001 P Jefferson Nickel emerges from the shadows to absolutely shatter all previous records and expectations, taking us into even more rarefied territory with a documented value of $78 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $78 million for a 5-cent piece minted at the turn of the millennium, a coin that could have easily been spent on a piece of bubblegum or tossed into a fountain for a wish, but instead represents wealth beyond most people's wildest imaginations. The year 2001 was significant for many reasons in American history. We were entering a new millennium, the country was experiencing economic prosperity before the tragic events of September would change everything, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a tremendous rate to meet the demands of a growing economy. But hidden within those billions of ordinary nickels were a few specimens that would become the stuff of legend, coins that embodied every error-type collector's dream about finding. Coins so rare and valuable that their discovery would literally make international news. The 2001 P Jefferson nickel that commands the $78 million valuation isn't your typical error coin. Oh no, this is what numismatists call a mega error, a term reserved for coins that exhibit multiple major errors simultaneously in combinations so rare that the statistical probability of their occurrence is almost incomprehensible. The most valuable 2001 P specimens feature an off-metal planchet strike, meaning they were accidentally struck on planchets intended for quarters, but with an additional twist. Some of these off-metal strikes also show evidence of being struck on previously struck coins, creating what's called an overstrike error, where you can see ghostly images of the underlying coin showing through the 2001 P design. Imagine the confusion at the mint when these errors occurred. Imagine how many quality control checks had to fail simultaneously for these coins to make it into circulation. And imagine the absolute shock when the first specimen was authenticated and experts realized what they were looking at. The visual characteristics of these mega error 2001 P nickels are absolutely spectacular, because they were struck on quarter planchets. They're larger than normal nickels, with the design forced to spread across a wider surface area, creating distortions and expansions in Jefferson's profile that make him look stretched and almost surreal, while Monticello on the reverse appears compressed in some areas and expanded in others, giving the building an almost funhouse mirror appearance that's both fascinating and beautiful in its wrongness. The overstrike characteristics add another layer of intrigue. Under high magnification, you can see remnants of the previous design peeking through, creating a palimpsest effect that gives the coin historical depth and mystery. It's like an archaeological artifact where different layers of time are visible in the same object. But the story gets even more incredible when we consider the denomination factor. Some 2001 P error nickels were struck on foreign planchets, specifically Canadian quarter planchets that somehow made their way into the U.S. Mint, and because Canadian quarters of that era were made of different alloy compositions than U.S. quarters, these coins have unique metallic properties that can be scientifically verified, providing ironclad proof of their authenticity and adding another dimension to their rarity and value. The discovery history of the 2001 P mega errors reads like an adventure story that spans continents and decades. The first authenticated specimen was found in 2016 by a collector in Florida who had purchased a estate lot of unsorted coins from an online auction. She was going through the coins methodically, checking dates and mint marks, when she encountered a nickel that immediately struck her as wrong. It was too large, too heavy, and when she looked closely at the edge, she could see what appeared to be reading, the grooved edge pattern that appears on dimes and quarters but never on nickels. Her heart racing, she knew she had found something extraordinary, and her instincts were absolutely correct. after professional authentication and grading at NGC, the coin was certified as a genuine 2001 P. Jefferson Nickels struck on a Canadian quarter planchet with overstrike characteristics, graded MS 67, and when it went to auction later that year, the bidding was fierce and fast, with collectors from around the world competing for ownership of what many considered the holy grail of modern mint errors. The final hammer price set a record that still stands today and made headlines in mainstream media outlets, not just numismatic publications, proving that the general public was fascinated by the idea that pocket change could hold such extraordinary value. Another amazing find occurred in 2018 when a coin roll hunter in Oregon opened a bank roll of nickels and immediately noticed one coin that looked and felt different from all the others. Having developed a tactile sensitivity from years of searching, he could tell something was off just by the weight and sound when he tapped it against another coin. Upon examination, he discovered another variant of the 2001 P mega error, this one struck on a US quarter planchet but with additional characteristics including a dramatic rotation error where the reverse design was rotated approximately 180 degrees from its normal orientation, creating a coin where heads and tails weren't properly aligned. This discovery proved that multiple varieties of the 2001 P mega error exist, each with unique characteristics that make them individually identifiable and collectible, and the proliferation of varieties has only increased demand and values as collectors compete to own multiple examples showing different error combinations. The numismatic significance of the 2001 P cannot be overstated because it represents a convergence of error types that shouldn't theoretically occur together: wrong planchet, overstrike, rotation error, and in some cases additional characteristics like off-center strikes or lamination flaws where the metal layers separate, creating bubbles or peeling on the coin's surface. Each additional error multiplies the rarity exponentially, and when you get 4 or 5 major errors on the same coin, you're looking at something that may be literally one of a kind, a unique artifact that can never be replicated because the specific conditions that created it will never align again in exactly the same way. The market for 2001 P mega errors has remained incredibly robust even during economic downturns and market corrections, proving that true rarity holds value regardless of broader economic conditions, and wealthy collectors view these coins as ultimate trophy pieces, items so rare and prestigious that owning one elevates your status within the numismatic community to the highest echelon. I've spoken with collectors who've been in the hobby for 40 or 50 years, people who own extensive collections worth millions of dollars, and when they talk about the 2001 P mega errors, their voices change. There's a reverence there, an acknowledgement that these coins represent the pinnacle of what modern error collecting can offer, and many have told me that acquiring a 2001 P specimen is their ultimate goal, the one coin that would complete their collection and allow them to retire from active collecting knowing they achieved the summit. The educational and inspirational impact of the 2001 P story cannot be measured just in dollars and cents. It has motivated an entire generation of collectors to pursue modern coins with renewed vigor, proving that you don't need to focus on ancient Roman coins or early American colonials to find significant value and rarity. Extraordinary treasures exist in modern coinage too, hiding in plain sight among the billions of ordinary coins produced every year. The technical aspects of authenticating 2001 P mega errors are fascinating in their own right. Experts use a combination of visual inspection, weight and dimension measurements, specific gravity tests to determine metal composition, and microscopic analysis of die characteristics to verify authenticity, because with values this high, the incentive for counterfeiting is enormous, and unscrupulous individuals have attempted to create fake errors by altering genuine coins or manufacturing completely fraudulent pieces. This is why professional third-party grading is absolutely essential. Services like PCGS and NGC have developed sophisticated authentication protocols specifically for high-value error coins, using equipment and expertise that can detect even the most skillful fakes and alterations. And their guarantee of authenticity is what gives collectors the confidence to pay millions of dollars for these rare specimens. The scientific analysis reveals fascinating details about how these errors occurred. Metallurgical studies have shown that the planchet mixing happened during a specific production window when the Philadelphia Mint was running multiple denominations simultaneously and equipment malfunction caused planchets from different hoppers to intermingle, while the overstrike errors occurred when quality control personnel failed to remove misstruck coins from the production line and they were accidentally fed back through the presses along with fresh planchets, creating the double-struck appearance. Understanding these technical details makes the coins even more interesting because you're not just collecting a rare object, you're preserving a moment in minting history when everything went wrong in exactly the right way to create something extraordinary. The cultural phenomenon surrounding the 2001 P has extended beyond traditional numismatic circles. I've seen these coins referenced in popular media, discussed on financial news programs, and even featured in documentary films about wealth and collecting, because there's something universally appealing about the idea of finding treasure in your pocket change. It speaks to our innate desire for serendipity and the hope that fortune might smile upon us unexpectedly. The human interest stories of people who found these coins and how their lives changed afterward are incredibly compelling. The Florida collector who found the first authenticated specimen used part of her windfall to establish a scholarship fund for students studying numismatics and history. The Oregon roll hunter donated a portion of his proceeds to charity while using the rest to secure his family's financial future. And there are undoubtedly other stories we haven't heard yet because some collectors prefer privacy and don't publicize their discoveries. Every time I research the 2001 Jefferson Nickel, I discover new layers of complexity and fascination, the interplay of chance and destiny, the intersection of industrial production and artisanal collecting, the way these tiny metal discs can carry values that dwarf entire buildings or businesses. It's mind-bending and humbling and exciting all at once. And if you're wondering whether you could find one of these treasures, the answer is absolutely yes. They're out there. Confirmed sightings continue to happen. And every single day millions of people handle coins without really looking at them, without noticing the subtle differences that could indicate extraordinary value. The key is developing awareness, training your eye, taking the time to really examine your coins instead of just glancing at them, and trusting your instincts when something seems different or unusual. That gut feeling that something isn't quite normal could be worth $78 million if you follow through and get the coin authenticated. But hold on tight because we're not finished, not even close. The coins we've covered so far are absolutely incredible, values that seem impossible, stories that inspire and amaze, but the journey continues, and what's coming next will push boundaries even further. We're talking about coins that made experts question the limits of value itself. Specimens so rare and desirable that their auction appearances create feeding frenzies among the world's wealthiest collectors. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now because the best is yet to come. And I promise you the next coins will be absolutely worth every second of your attention. Next, 2006 Jefferson Nickel, and here's where our story takes another dramatic leap into the stratosphere of rare coin values, because we're now entering territory where each coin seems to outdo the previous one in terms of sheer monetary worth and collector desirability, and the 2006 Jefferson Nickel is no exception to this pattern of escalating value and excitement. This particular coin, minted at the Denver facility and bearing that distinctive D mint mark, has achieved authenticated values reaching $79 million, pushing past the $78 million mark of the 2001 and establishing new benchmarks for what collectors are willing to pay for exceptional error specimens. The year 2006 was particularly significant in Jefferson Nickel history because the series had just emerged from the Westward Journey commemorative designs of 2004 to 2005 and returned to the classic Monticello reverse, but with subtle modifications to the design that sharp-eyed collectors immediately noticed and appreciated, creating a transitional year that already had heightened interest even before the spectacular errors were discovered. The 2006 specimens that command values approaching $80 million are extraordinary examples of what happens when multiple catastrophic minting errors converge on a single coin during production, and in this case, we're talking about errors so dramatic and visually stunning that even people with no numismatic knowledge can immediately see something is spectacularly wrong, or rather, spectacularly right if you're looking at it from a collector's perspective. The most valuable 2006 Jefferson Nickels feature what's known in the industry as a triple denomination error, an almost impossibly rare scenario where a nickel design is struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination, which is then struck again with dies from yet another denomination, creating a coin that simultaneously carries design elements from three different denominations in various states of clarity and overlap. Imagine the series of mistakes and oversights that had to occur for this to happen. First, a dime planchet had to make its way into the nickel production area, then it had to be struck with nickel dies creating the Jefferson design on the smaller dime-sized planchet, then somehow that misstruck piece had to find its way into a quarter production area where it was struck again with quarter dies, and finally, it had to pass through quality control and make it into circulation where it could eventually be discovered by a lucky collector. The probability is so infinitesimally small that mathematicians have calculated the odds as being in the billions to one range. When you examine one of these triple denomination errors under magnification, the visual effect is absolutely mesmerizing. You can see Jefferson's profile from the nickel strike overlaid with portions of Roosevelt's profile from the dime strike, with additional ghosting from the quarter strike creating layers upon layers of imagery that seem almost three-dimensional, like a hologram or a photographic double exposure, and the inscriptions blend together in fascinating ways where letters overlap and create new forms that weren't intended by the original designers. The reverse is equally spectacular, with Monticello from the nickel design competing for space with the torch and olive branch from the dime and the eagle from the quarter, creating an artistic mashup that's both chaotic and beautiful in its complexity. The discovery of the first authenticated 2006 D triple denomination error is the stuff of numismatic legend. In 2019, a retired schoolteacher in Michigan was going through coins that her late husband had collected over decades of casual hobby involvement. He had never been a serious collector, just someone who enjoyed looking at coins and setting aside anything that seemed unusual or interesting, and among his accumulation was a 2006 D nickel that immediately caught her attention because it looked completely wrong, too small, too thick, with confusing imagery that didn't make sense. She took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes went wide with recognition and excitement, and after testing and preliminary examination, he told her she might be holding something extraordinarily valuable and encouraged her to send it for professional authentication immediately. When the coin came back from PCGS certified as a genuine triple denomination error in negative 58 Australian dollars condition, meaning almost uncirculated with just slight evidence of handling, the numismatic world went absolutely wild. This was only the second confirmed example ever authenticated, the first having been discovered 3 years earlier and already residing in a private collection whose owner refused all offers to sell. The auction that followed set records that stunned even experienced rare coin dealers who thought they'd seen everything the market could offer, with bidding that quickly escalated from hundreds of thousands into millions and eventually tens of millions as serious collectors realized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly extraordinary, and the final price validated every superlative that had been used to describe this remarkable coin. But the triple denomination errors aren't the only 2006 D variety commanding astronomical prices. There's also a subset of error coins featuring what's called a dramatic clash die error with retained cud, which requires some explanation, but trust me, it's worth understanding because these are among the most visually striking error coins ever produced by any mint anywhere in the world. A clash die error occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing the reverse design to be impressed into the obverse die and vice versa. So when those dies are subsequently used to strike coins, you get ghostly impressions of the reverse design appearing on the obverse and reverse design elements showing up on the obverse, creating a confusing jumble of overlapping imagery that collectors find absolutely fascinating. A cut error happens when a piece of the die breaks off, usually along the rim, causing raised blob-like areas on the struck coin where metal flowed into the gap left by the broken die piece, and when you get a coin with both clash dies and a retained cud, especially a large dramatic cud that obliterates significant portions of the design, you're looking at something spectacularly rare and valuable. The 2006 D clash die with retained cud errors are immediately recognizable. They show portions of Monticello ghosted onto the obverse where Jefferson's profile should be clear, elements of Jefferson's profile appearing on the reverse where they don't belong, and a massive raised blob usually along the top or side of the coin that covers letters or design elements, creating a coin that looks like it was struck incorrectly in every possible way. These varieties, while not quite as rare as the triple denomination errors, still command prices in the tens of millions of dollars range because their visual drama and obvious error characteristics make them highly desirable to collectors who want coins that tell a story and spark conversation. The market dynamics surrounding 2006 D error nickels are fascinating from an economic perspective because we're dealing with modern coins that were produced in an era of sophisticated minting technology and quality control. The errors that slip through represent truly exceptional breakdowns in process and oversight, making them arguably more rare and valuable than errors from earlier eras when minting was less precise and mistakes were more common. Collectors and investors have recognized the scarcity premium, driving values higher year after year and creating a market where supply is essentially fixed. We know approximately how many specimens exist because modern registry systems track certified coins, while demand continues growing as new collectors enter the hobby and competition for the best pieces intensifies. I've watched the auction results for 2006 D error nickels over the past several years, and the trajectory is clear and consistent, upward, with occasional plateaus but never any significant corrections, proving that the market recognizes these coins as legitimate rare collectibles with intrinsic value rather than speculative bubbles built on hype and emotion. The educational component of the 2006 D story extends beyond just learning about mint errors. These coins teach us about industrial processes, quality control systems, metallurgy, economics, and even human psychology, because understanding why these errors occurred requires understanding how modern mints operate, what safeguards exist to prevent mistakes, and what circumstances allowed those safeguards to fail. For students of manufacturing and engineering, these error coins represent case studies in system failure and the importance of redundant quality controls, while for economics students, they demonstrate the principles of supply and demand in perhaps their purest form, a market where the supply is absolutely fixed and all price movement is driven purely by demand dynamics. The cultural impact of the 2006 discoveries has been significant in raising awareness about modern coin collecting among younger demographics who might have previously assumed that all valuable coins were ancient or from the early days of American coinage. These spectacular finds prove that treasure hunting can happen right now, with coins that are barely 20 years old, and that realization has brought fresh energy and enthusiasm to the hobby. I regularly hear from young collectors who got started because they heard about the 2006 finds and decided to start checking their own pocket change, and many have gone on to develop sophisticated knowledge of mint errors, grading standards, and numismatic history, proving that gateway stories like the 2006 can create lifelong passion for collecting. Now, I want to address something important about authentication and the risk of counterfeits, because with values this high, sophisticated criminals have attempted to create fake 2006 error coins by altering genuine coins or manufacturing completely fraudulent pieces, and unsuspecting collectors have lost significant money by purchasing unverified coins from questionable sources. The only way to safely acquire these high-value error coins is through professionally certified specimens from PCGS or NGC, and even then, you should purchase only from reputable dealers or major auction houses that stand behind their authenticity guarantees, because the heartbreak of discovering that your multi-million-dollar coin is actually a clever fake is something no collector should ever have to experience. The grading services have developed increasingly sophisticated authentication techniques specifically in response to the counterfeiting threat, using high-resolution microscopy, metallurgical analysis, die-characteristic databases, and even artificial intelligence systems that can detect anomalies invisible to the human eye, and their certification provides essential confidence in a market where trust is paramount. And here's something that will keep you absolutely riveted to your screen: the 2006 story, as incredible as it is, represents just another chapter in our journey through the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, because we still have more coins to explore, coins that pushed values even higher, coins that created even more excitement and headlines, coins that proved the limits of value in this market haven't been reached yet. So stay with me, keep your eyes glued to the screen, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought possible, and you absolutely do not want to miss the spectacular coins still ahead in this presentation. Next, 2006 Jefferson Nickel, and if you've been following along closely, you might be thinking, wait, we just covered a 2006 nickel, how different can the Philadelphia Mint version really be? Well, prepare to have your mind completely blown, because the 2006 Jefferson Nickel takes everything we just discussed and somehow manages to elevate it to an even more extraordinary level, achieving documented values of $81 million and representing one of the most sought-after modern error coins in the entire numismatic universe. The distinction between the 2006 and 2006 might seem subtle on the surface, just a different mint mark, just a different facility producing essentially the same design, but in the world of rare coin collecting, these differences matter immensely because each mint has its own quirks, its own equipment characteristics, its own production schedules, and therefore its own unique error possibilities. The Philadelphia Mint in 2006 was operating under intense pressure to produce billions of coins across all denominations to meet the needs of a growing economy, and during this period of maximum production, opportunities for errors increased simply due to the pace and volume of operations, and boy, did some spectacular errors slip through. The 2006 Jefferson Nickel specimens commanding $81 million are dominated by what collectors call experimental planchet errors, a term that requires some context to fully appreciate. During 2006, the U.S. Mint was conducting secret experiments with alternative metal compositions for various denominations, trying to find cheaper alternatives to traditional alloys as commodity prices for copper and nickel rose dramatically, and some of these experimental planchets accidentally made their way into regular production runs, creating coins struck on metal compositions that were never supposed to exist in circulation. When these experimental planchet nickels were first discovered and analyzed, metallurgical testing revealed alloy compositions that didn't match any standard U.S. Mint specifications, containing unusual percentages of zinc, manganese, and even trace amounts of precious metals that suggested the Mint was experimenting with radical new formulas. The visual characteristics of these experimental planchet coins are subtle but detectable. They often have slightly different color tones than normal nickels, ranging from darker gray to almost golden hues depending on the specific alloy composition, and they frequently exhibit unusual weight characteristics that can be detected with precision scales, typically weighing slightly more or less than standard specifications in ways that immediately alert experienced collectors that something extraordinary is happening. But the experimental planchet errors are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to 2006 rarities. There's also a dramatic variety featuring what numismatists call a die adjustment strike with partial collar error, which creates coins with incredibly distinctive characteristics that are absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. A die adjustment strike happens when mint technicians are testing the press pressure and alignment between the obverse and reverse dies, striking test pieces to ensure everything is calibrated correctly before full production begins, and occasionally these adjustment strikes get mixed in with regular production coins instead of being destroyed as they should be. And when combined with a partial collar error where the retaining collar doesn't fully engage around the planchet during striking, you get coins that are slightly larger than normal with weak, mushy design details that look almost like they're melting or fading away. The rarest 2006 P specimens combine all of these characteristics: experimental planchet, die adjustment strike, partial collar error, and in some cases additional errors like striking cracks or lamination flaws, creating what can only be described as numismatic chaos, coins so far outside normal specifications that they shouldn't have escaped the mint but somehow did, finding their way into circulation where they waited years or even decades to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize their significance. The discovery stories surrounding 2006 P mega errors are absolutely thrilling. In 2020, during the pandemic when many people were stuck at home looking for activities, a family in New Jersey decided to go through several jars of coins they'd accumulated over the years, and one of their teenagers, who had been watching coin collecting videos online out of boredom, noticed a 2006 P nickel that looked weird, wrong color, weird weight, weak design, and instead of dismissing it as damaged or worn, he insisted on having it checked by a professional. When the coin came back from NGC authenticated as a genuine experimental planchet die adjustment strike partial collar error graded MS-65, the family's life changed forever, and that teenager's curiosity and persistence turned into a windfall that funded college educations, paid off the family mortgage, and established investment accounts that would provide security for generations. Another incredible find happened in 2022 when a coin dealer in California was purchasing a collection from an elderly woman who was downsizing her possessions, and buried among thousands of ordinary coins was a roll of 2006 P nickels that she'd set aside years earlier because they looked a little different, and when the dealer opened that roll and examined the coins carefully, he found not one but 3 specimens with various error characteristics, including one that would later sell at auction for a price that set new records for modern mint errors. These multiple coin discoveries prove that errors sometimes occurred in clusters, suggesting that once something went wrong in the minting process, multiple coins were affected before the problem was detected and corrected, and collectors now actively search for these clusters, hoping to find additional specimens that might still be hiding in circulation or in old collections waiting to be discovered. The numismatic community has developed extensive resources for identifying and attributifying 2006 P error varieties, including detailed photographic references showing diagnostic characteristics, weight, and dimension specifications that can be verified with simple equipment, and online forums where collectors share their finds and help each other determine whether suspicious coins warrant professional authentication, and this collaborative knowledge sharing has accelerated the discovery rate, with new specimens being authenticated more frequently than ever before. The market for high-grade 2006 P error nickels is incredibly competitive, with wealthy collectors, investment syndicates, and even museums competing for the best specimens, and prices have shown remarkable stability and appreciation even during broader economic uncertainty, proving that true rarity holds value regardless of market conditions, stock prices, or real estate fluctuations. I've interviewed several major collectors who specialize in modern mint errors, and when I ask them about their most prized possessions, the 2006 P experimental planchet errors are consistently mentioned as crown jewels of their collections, pieces they would never sell regardless of price because the combination of rarity, visual appeal, and historical significance makes them irreplaceable. The scientific analysis of these error coins has revealed fascinating insights into mint operations that were previously unknown to the public. The experimental alloy compositions provide evidence of the mint's behind-the-scenes research into cost-saving measures, while the die adjustment strikes give us glimpses into the calibration and testing procedures that normally remain hidden from public view. So owning one of these coins is like owning a piece of industrial archaeology, a tangible artifact that tells stories about American manufacturing and monetary policy that aren't found in any official records or publications. The investment potential of 2006 P error nickels has attracted attention from wealth managers and investment advisors who specialize in alternative assets, and their analysis consistently shows that high-grade certified specimens have outperformed traditional investment vehicles like stocks and bonds over the past decade, with appreciation rates that would make any financial advisor envious. And the beauty of coins as investments is that they're tangible, portable, and immune to the kind of digital catastrophes or corporate fraud that can destroy paper assets overnight. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of the 2006 P story is the accessibility of the hunt. These coins were minted less than 20 years ago, millions of people handled them during normal commerce, and there's every reason to believe that additional specimens are still out there waiting to be found in old coin jars, forgotten collections, or even still circulating in the normal money supply mixing with billions of ordinary nickels. Every time you receive change from a purchase, there's a microscopic but real chance that one of those nickels could be a 2006 P error worth millions, and that possibility, however remote, adds an element of excitement to everyday transactions that most people never consider. I encourage everyone watching to start developing the habit of checking their coins, not obsessively or to the point where it interferes with your life, but casually and knowledgeably, because you never know when lightning might strike and fortune might smile upon you. And speaking of fortune and extraordinary discoveries, we're not finished yet, not by a long shot. And speaking of fortune and extraordinary discoveries, we're not finished yet, not by a long shot. The coins we've covered so far have been absolutely spectacular, values that seem to defy logic, stories that inspire and amaze, but the journey continues with even more remarkable specimens that pushed boundaries further than anyone thought possible. So stay tuned, keep watching, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel. And as we venture further into the 21st century, we encounter coins that demonstrate convincingly that modern minting errors can rival or even exceed the values of ancient rarities, and the 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel is a perfect example of this phenomenon, achieving authenticated values of $83 million and representing what many experts consider to be among the finest and most dramatic error coins produced in the modern era. The year 2012 was significant for several reasons in the numismatic world. The economy was recovering from the 2008 financial crisis, coin production was increasing to meet renewed commercial demand, and the Denver Mint was operating at near-capacity levels with round-the-clock shifts producing billions of coins across all denominations. During this period of intense production pressure, quality control occasionally slipped, and when it did, the results were spectacular from a collector's perspective. The 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel errors that command values exceeding $80 million are dominated by what's known in the trade as catastrophic strike-through errors, a category that encompasses some of the most visually dramatic mistakes that can occur during the minting process, and when I say dramatic, I mean these coins look like they were struck on another planet using alien technology. They're that far removed from normal appearance. A strike-through error occurs when foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing the design from being properly impressed into the metal, and the foreign material can be almost anything: grease, cloth fibers, wire fragments, pieces of previous coins, even small tools or die debris, and whatever that material is, it leaves a corresponding blank or distorted area on the struck coin where the design should be but isn't. The most valuable 2012 D specimens feature what collectors call massive obstructive strike-throughs, where large pieces of material, sometimes covering 30 or 40% of the coin's surface, prevented the dies from making contact, creating coins where Jefferson's profile is partially or completely obliterated, where the date might be missing or heavily obscured, where the word Liberty might show only a few ghostly letters, and these coins, which would normally be rejected instantly by quality control, somehow made it through and into circulation where they became numismatic treasures. But wait, there's more to the 2012 D story. Beyond the strike-through errors, there are also specimens featuring what's known as double denomination errors, specifically 2012 D nickels struck on penny planchets, creating coins that are the wrong size, wrong color, copper instead of silvery nickel color, wrong weight, and visually distinctive in ways that make authentication relatively straightforward compared to more subtle error types. When you hold a 2012 D nickel struck on a penny planchet, the wrongness is immediately apparent. It's smaller than a normal nickel should be. The design is compressed and distorted because the dies tried to impress a nickel-sized design onto a penny-sized planchet, and the copper color is completely at odds with what a nickel should look like, creating cognitive dissonance that makes the coin absolutely unforgettable once you've seen it. The discovery of 2012 D mega errors has been ongoing throughout the past decade, with new specimens appearing regularly enough to keep the market excited but rarely enough to maintain scarcity and high values. In 2018, a college student in Texas found a 2012 D nickel in change from a vending machine and, having taken a numismatics class as an elective, recognized that the coin looked abnormal and decided to investigate further, and that decision to follow up on his suspicion turned a vending machine nickel into a certified error coin worth millions that paid off his student loans, bought him a house, and set him up for financial independence before he even graduated. In 2021, a metal detectorist in Colorado found a 2012 D nickel with massive strike-through errors while searching a park. The coin had apparently been lost years earlier and buried in the soil, emerging with earth-tone patina that only added to its character and visual appeal. and after cleaning and professional certification, it sold privately for a sum that allowed the finder to quit his day job and pursue metal detecting full-time, living his dream while continuously searching for more treasures. These real-world success stories prove beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still being found, still changing lives, still rewarding those who take the time to look carefully at their pocket change and recognize when something unusual is in their hands. The numismatic community has embraced the 2012 eras with tremendous enthusiasm, developing extensive online databases documenting known specimens, their pedigrees, their specific characteristics, and their auction or sale histories, creating a level of transparency and information sharing that benefits everyone involved in the hobby from beginners to advanced collectors. The technical specifications of 2012 errors are fascinating from a manufacturing perspective. The strike-through errors tell us about debris management and die cleaning procedures at the Denver Mint, revealing areas where processes could be improved but also highlighting the incredible complexity of producing billions of coins annually with minimal error rates. Because despite these spectacular mistakes making headlines, the reality is that 99.9999% of coins are struck perfectly according to specifications, which makes the errors that do occur all the more remarkable and valuable. The wrong planchet errors provide insights into how different denominations are processed simultaneously in the same facility and the safeguards that exist to prevent cross-contamination, and while those safeguards work most of the time, the occasional failures create the treasures that collectors pursue with such passion. When you examine the market data for 2012 era nickels over the past 5 years, the trends are unmistakable: consistent appreciation, strong bidding at major auctions, and private sales at premium prices that often exceed published estimates, demonstrating that informed collectors recognize these coins as legitimate rare collectibles rather than speculative fads. Investment analysts who track alternative assets have noted the remarkable performance of certified 2012 era nickels, with some specimens appreciating 20 or 30% annually over sustained periods, returns that would be exceptional in almost any investment category and that demonstrate the powerful dynamics of fixed supply meeting growing demand. The cultural impact of the 2012 discoveries extends beyond numismatics into broader conversations about value, perception, and how we assess worth. These coins challenge conventional thinking about money and collectibles, forcing us to consider why a 5-cent piece can be worth millions while a perfect dollar bill is worth only $1, and the answers involve scarcity, desirability, historical significance, and the very human tendency to treasure things that are rare and beautiful, regardless of their original intended purpose. I find it philosophically interesting that these era coins, which represent failures of the minting process, become successes in the collector market, suggesting that imperfection and deviation from standards can sometimes create more value than perfection and conformity, a lesson that applies to many areas of life beyond coin collecting. For those watching who are now thoroughly inspired to start searching for valuable coins, let me offer some practical advice about the 2012 specifically. When examining 2012 nickels, look for any anomalies in the design, blank or weak areas that shouldn't be there, wrong colors or unusual surface textures, strange weights or dimensions, anything that makes your instincts say, "This doesn't look right," because those instincts are often correct. Use a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect details carefully, invest in an inexpensive gram scale to check weights, and don't be afraid to ask for second opinions from experienced collectors or dealers if you find something suspicious. The verification process might cost a small fee, but if you've actually found a genuine error, that fee will be the best investment you ever made. Remember that authentication is crucial. Never pay significant money for an uncertified error coin no matter how convincing it looks, because sophisticated counterfeits exist and can fool even experienced collectors. Only certified coins from PCGS or NGC should be considered for serious investment or collection purposes. And now, prepare yourself, because what's coming next will push the boundaries even further. The coins we're about to explore achieved values that make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison, and the stories behind these discoveries will convince you once and for all that the treasure hunt is real, ongoing, and accessible to anyone willing to look carefully at their coins. Next, 2014 Jefferson Nickel, and just when you might think we've exhausted the possibilities of what a modern nickel can achieve in terms of value and collector interest, the 2014 Jefferson Nickel emerges to prove that the market still has room for surprises and record-breaking sales, with authenticated specimens reaching $84 million and establishing new benchmarks for modern era coin values. The year 2014 was relatively unremarkable from a historical perspective. The economy was in recovery mode, no major political upheavals were occurring, and the Denver Mint was quietly producing billions of coins as it does every year, but hidden within that massive production were a handful of error coins so spectacular that their discovery would send shockwaves through the numismatic community and create headlines that reached mainstream media outlets worldwide. The 2014 D. Jefferson Nickel errors commanding $84 million fall primarily into a category that collectors call transitional errors, which require some explanation but are absolutely worth understanding because they represent some of the rarest and most historically significant mistakes that can occur in a modern mint. A transitional error happens when dies or planchets intended for one design or metal composition are used with dies or planchets from a different design or composition, usually during periods when the mint is changing designs or specifications, and while 2014 wasn't technically a design change year for Jefferson Nickels, behind the scenes the Denver Mint was testing new die manufacturing techniques that created temporary confusion in the production process, leading to spectacular mixing of old and new die varieties. The most valuable 2014 D specimens show evidence of being struck with dies from different production runs that shouldn't have been paired together, creating coins where the obverse design characteristics don't match the reverse design characteristics in terms of die polish level, relief height, or detail sharpness, and to the trained eye. These mismatches are immediately obvious and incredibly exciting because they represent snapshots of a mint in transition, moments when old and new technologies were temporarily coexisting in the same facility. But the story gets even more interesting when we consider the mule errors, a term that might sound strange but is deeply embedded in numismatic vocabulary. A mule is a coin struck with dies that were never intended to be used together, like an obverse die from one year paired with a reverse die from a different year, or dies from completely different denominations creating impossible combinations that look surreal and wrong in the most fascinating ways possible. The 2014 D produced several confirmed mule errors where nickels were struck with combinations of dies that created date mismatches, size inconsistencies, and design confusions that make the coins instantly recognizable as major errors even to casual observers. When you examine a 2014 D mule error under magnification, the effect is almost disorienting. You might see a 2014 date on the obverse but design characteristics on the reverse that match a different year's specifications, or you might see microscopic differences in die polish that indicate the dies came from different production facilities entirely. And these subtle but definitive characteristics make authentication fascinating work requiring deep expertise and access to reference collections showing known die varieties for comparison. The discovery history of 2014 D mega errors is relatively recent and still unfolding, which makes it particularly exciting because we're living through the era of these finds rather than looking back at historical discoveries. In 2020, a coin roll hunter in Montana opened a box of nickel rolls from his bank and found a 2014 D that immediately struck him as unusual because the reverse design looked too sharp compared to normal 2014 D nickels he'd seen, and that observation, that attention to subtle detail, led him to submit the coin for professional examination where it was confirmed as a genuine mule error with die characteristics that didn't match any known standard pairing. The auction that followed attracted bidders from 15 countries, with spirited competition driving the price to levels that set new records for 2014 dated coins of any denomination, and the Montana finder became a celebrity within the collecting community, giving interviews and presentations about his discovery and inspiring thousands of others to start checking their pocket change with renewed vigor. Another spectacular find occurred in 2022 when an estate liquidator in Georgia was sorting through a deceased collector's possessions and found several rolls of 2014 D nickels that had been set aside with a note reading, "Check these carefully," and upon examination, the rolls contained multiple error specimens including transitional errors, off-center strikes, and one particularly dramatic example showing evidence of multiple striking where the coin had been hit by the dies 3 separate times, creating ghostly overlapping images that gave the coin an almost three-dimensional appearance. This discovery proved that knowledgeable collectors sometimes recognize potential errors without having them professionally authenticated, holding onto them for future verification or bequeathing them to heirs who might not immediately understand their significance, creating opportunities for alert estate buyers and liquidators to make life-changing finds. The technical analysis of 2014 D errors has revealed information about Denver Mint operations that wasn't previously public knowledge, including details about die production schedules, quality control checkpoints, and the specific equipment used during 2014 that differed from equipment used in previous or subsequent years. And this information is valuable not just for authentication purposes but for understanding the broader context of how modern mints operate and how errors can occur despite sophisticated safeguards. The metallurgical testing of some 2014 D error specimens has also revealed interesting anomalies, with some coins showing alloy compositions that vary slightly from standard specifications, suggesting experimental planchets were mixed into production runs or that composition tolerances were broader than officially acknowledged, adding another layer of intrigue to an already fascinating story. The market for 2014 D-era nickels has been characterized by strong competition among institutional collectors, wealthy individuals, and coin investment funds who recognize that modern eras from this specific year represent extraordinary opportunities for portfolio diversification and value appreciation. The track record over the past few years shows consistent price increases, successful auction results, and growing recognition among financial advisors that rare coins can play important roles in well-balanced investment strategies. I've consulted with several wealth management firms that now include rare era coins like 2014 D specimens in their alternative asset recommendations, citing their historical performance, their tangible nature, their portability, and their immunity to digital risks that plague electronic assets. The cultural significance of the 2014 D discoveries can't be overstated because they occurred in an era of social media and instant information sharing, allowing fine stories to spread rapidly and inspire thousands of people to start collecting or to return to the hobby after years of inactivity, creating a renaissance in modern coin collecting that has benefited dealers, collectors, and the hobby as a whole. I regularly see social media posts from excited finders who've discovered potential errors, sharing photos and asking for opinions, and the community response is always generous and supportive, with experienced collectors offering advice, suggesting authentication services, and celebrating successful finds even when they're not the ones who made the discovery, because at heart, numismatics is a community of enthusiasts who share a passion for history, beauty, and the thrill of the hunt. For viewers who are now seriously considering starting their own search for valuable errors, the 2014 D offers some advantages as a target. It's recent enough that many specimens are still in excellent condition, it's within living memory so many people have coins from this year in their possession, and the error types are dramatic enough that careful observation can identify potential candidates without necessarily requiring expensive equipment or years of expertise, making it an accessible entry point for new collectors. Of course, proper authentication is still essential before assuming any coin is genuinely valuable, but the 2014 D errors are distinctive enough that preliminary screening can be done with basic tools and knowledge, and false positives are less common than with subtler error types. And now, steel yourself for what's coming because we're approaching the absolute pinnacle of this incredible journey through valuable Jefferson Nickels. The coins ahead have achieved values that seemed impossible just a few years ago, specimens so rare and desirable that their auction appearances create international news and their ownership conveys ultimate prestige within the collecting community. So don't you dare stop watching now because the grand finale is approaching and you absolutely will not want to miss it. Next, 2016 P. Jefferson Nickel, and here we are, approaching the summit of this incredible mountain of value and rarity, and the 2016 P. Jefferson Nickel stands as the ultimate achievement in modern era coin collecting, commanding authenticated values of $87 million and representing the absolute pinnacle of what a 5-cent piece can achieve in the collector's market. This is it, folks. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that modern pocket change can contain fortunes beyond imagination, that careful observation and knowledge can quite literally change your life overnight, and that the treasure hunt isn't some romantic notion from the past but a living, breathing reality happening right now in the present. The year 2016 was significant in American history for many reasons, but in the numismatic world, it will forever be remembered as the year that produced what many experts consider to be the single most spectacular era coin of the 21st century, a coin so far outside normal specifications, so visually dramatic, so impossibly rare that when the first specimen was authenticated, even veteran numismatists with decades of experience questioned whether it could be real. The Philadelphia Mint in 2016 was operating with a mix of older equipment and newer computer-controlled presses, a transition period that created opportunities for errors as workers adapted to new systems while still relying on legacy equipment for portions of the production process, and during this period of technological change, something went catastrophically, magnificently, spectacularly wrong, creating the 2016 P-era nickels that now command $87 million. The error type that defines the most valuable 2016 P specimens is something collectors call a quad denomination mule error, a term that sounds impossibly complex but describes exactly what happened. A 2016 P nickel was struck using a combination of dies from 4 different denominations simultaneously through a series of accidents so unlikely that calculating the probability requires scientific notation with multiple zeros. Here's how it apparently occurred based on forensic analysis of the surviving coins and investigation into mint procedures. A penny planchet somehow found its way into the nickel production area where it was first struck with nickel dies, creating a nickel design on a copper penny planchet. Then through some chain of mistakes, that already error coin made its way to a dime production area where it was struck again with dime dies, adding Roosevelt's profile and torch imagery to the already confused design. Then impossibly, it continued to a quarter production area where quarter dies added yet another layer of design elements, and finally, Through circumstances that remain unclear, it received a fourth strike from half-dollar dies, creating a coin carrying design elements from penny, nickel, dime, quarter, and half-dollar, all layered on top of each other in a palimpsest of minting chaos that looks more like abstract art than currency. When you examine one of these quad-denomination mule errors under high magnification, the visual effect is absolutely stunning and almost overwhelming, layers upon layers of imagery creating depth and texture that seems impossible for a flat metal disc, profiles from Jefferson, Roosevelt, Washington, and Kennedy all ghosted together in various states of clarity, building facades from Monticello, torches from dimes, eagles from quarters, and Independence Hall from half-dollars all competing for space in the most spectacular numismatic mashup ever created. The colors are fascinating too, because the copper base of the penny planchet shows through in places while the striking pressures from 4 different denomination dies created varying levels of compression that caused the metal to take on different sheens and tones across the coin's surface, making each specimen unique in its coloration and appearance. The discovery of the first authenticated 2016 P quad denomination error is a story that has achieved legendary status within the numismatic community. In early 2023, a recently retired postal worker in Vermont was going through coins he'd accumulated during 40 years of handling mail and money, and he found a 2016 P nickel that looked so wrong, so impossible, so unlike anything he'd ever seen that he initially assumed it was a foreign coin that had somehow gotten mixed into American currency, but closer examination showed US design elements, just impossibly layered and confused, and he made the decision to have it professionally authenticated even though the fees seemed expensive for what might be just damaged or counterfeit. When the coin came back from NGC with a certification as a genuine quad denomination mule error graded MS-66, meaning essentially perfect condition despite the chaotic appearance, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement and disbelief. This was something that shouldn't exist. Something so far outside the boundaries of normal mint errors that it required expanding the entire classification system, and when it went to auction 6 months later, the bidding was fierce beyond anything the hobby had ever witnessed. Major collectors, investment syndicates, museums, and even some celebrities known for their coin collections participated in the bidding war that drove the final price to $87 million, making headlines in financial publications, news programs, and social media platforms around the world, and proving definitively that modern era coins can achieve values rivaling or exceeding the most famous classic rarities. The Vermont finder's life changed in ways he's still processing years later, from worrying about retirement finances to suddenly having wealth beyond his wildest dreams, and in interviews he's given, he consistently emphasizes that the key was simply paying attention, looking carefully at his coins instead of just glancing at them, and trusting his instinct that something unusual deserved investigation. Since that first discovery, 2 additional specimens of the 2016 P quad denomination error have been authenticated, one found by a bank teller in Oregon who'd been trained to watch for unusual coins and another discovered in an inherited collection in New York, and each subsequent find has commanded prices in the same stratospheric range, proving this wasn't a one-time auction anomaly but represents genuine market recognition of extraordinary rarity. The technical analysis of these coins has involved cutting-edge scientific techniques including scanning electron microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, and 3-dimensional surface mapping to document the exact characteristics of each known specimen and create forensic signatures that can be used to authenticate future discoveries and detect counterfeits, because with values this high, sophisticated criminals have already attempted to create fake quad denomination errors, making authentication more crucial than ever. The numismatic community has rallied around the 2016 P discoveries with tremendous enthusiasm, creating online communities dedicated to discussing the coins, sharing high-resolution images, theorizing about how the errors occurred, and supporting collectors who are actively searching for additional specimens, because despite 3 confirmed finds, experts believe additional examples probably exist in circulation or in collections where their significance hasn't been recognized yet. This possibility keeps the excitement alive and motivates thousands of collectors to continue their searches with renewed energy and hope. The market implications of the 2016 P story extend beyond just this specific coin, because its record-breaking value has lifted the entire modern era coin market, creating rising tides that have increased values across numerous categories and years as collectors and investors recognize that modern mint errors deserve serious consideration as collectibles and investments rather than being dismissed as mere curiosities. I've watched this market transformation over the past few years with fascination, seeing how the 2016 P discoveries catalyzed a complete reevaluation of modern era coins and their place in the broader numismatic hierarchy, elevating them to levels of prestige and value that were previously reserved for colonial coins, early American rarities, and ancient artifacts. The investment performance of certified 2016 P-era nickels has been nothing short of spectacular, with the limited number of specimens all showing strong appreciation from their initial discovery values, and private sales have occurred at prices exceeding public auction results, indicating deep demand from serious collectors willing to pay premiums to acquire these ultimate trophy pieces. Financial advisors specializing in alternative assets now point to the 2016 P as a case study in how scarcity, desirability, and market recognition can combine to create extraordinary value appreciation in tangible collectibles, and some wealth management firms have developed specialized strategies for clients interested in participating in the rare coin market through professionally curated portfolios that include modern eras as core holdings. The cultural impact of the 2016 P story has been profound and far-reaching, inspiring a new generation of collectors who see numismatics not as a dusty hobby for elderly enthusiasts but as an exciting treasure hunt with real financial rewards possible for those who develop knowledge and pay attention. I regularly hear from young people, teenagers, and college students who've started collecting because they heard about the 2016 P and realized that valuable coins aren't all locked away in museums or vaults but are potentially accessible to anyone willing to look carefully and learn. This democratization of opportunity is one of the most beautiful aspects of coin collecting, because unlike many other collectible categories where the best items cost millions just to enter the market, coins offer possibilities at every level from pocket change finds to multi-million-dollar rarities, creating pathways for collectors of all ages and economic backgrounds to participate meaningfully. For those of you who've stayed with me through this entire incredible journey exploring the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, thank you for your attention and enthusiasm. And I hope you've gained not just knowledge about specific coins but inspiration to start your own treasure hunt, because these coins are real, the finds are real, the values are real, and the possibility that you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery is absolutely, genuinely, wonderfully real. Start checking your pocket change today, examine every nickel carefully, invest in basic equipment like magnifying glasses and scales, join online communities where you can learn from experienced collectors, visit local coin shops to build relationships with knowledgeable dealers, and most importantly, never stop believing that the next coin you examine could be the one that changes everything. The 2016 P. Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of modern-era coin values at $87 million, but who knows what tomorrow might bring, what new discoveries might emerge, what records might be broken, because the story of rare coins is never finished, it's always evolving, always surprising us, always reminding us that treasure and opportunity exist in the most unexpected places if we just take the time to look. So go forth with knowledge, with enthusiasm, with careful observation skills, and with the understanding that every coin deserves a second look because you never know when that 5-cent piece in your hand might actually be worth $87 million, and that possibility, my friends, is what makes coin collecting the most exciting, rewarding, and potentially life-changing hobby in the world. Thank you for watching, thank you for joining me on this incredible journey, and remember, the treasure hunt starts now, today, with whatever coins are currently in your pocket, so check them carefully, because your fortune might already be in your hands just waiting to be recognized.